Alright, so further discussion on, I just saw Star Wars The Force Awakens last night. I went to the midnight showing, so when by the time I got home, got to sleep, and got done, it was like 4 a.m., so I slept until about 1:30 p.m., took care of some personal stuff today, not a very productive day. So it's around midnight, and I'm making the video review of Star Wars The Force Unleashed with my reaction to it. And this will be like the detailed reaction. I did a first impression thing at the theater. That's either the first video or first segment of this video. We'll figure out how I'm going to post that. But the movie, it's kind of like trying to pack the Tolkien books into the grand production of the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all that kind of stuff. And so what we're seeing in The Force Unleashed is the movie's a lot like the trailer in that it seems to have like a bunch of segments that have been pulled out from something to fit into a time format. And so we're really going to have to wait for the director's cut to figure out what the rest of what's going on in there. And I'm certain that there's a whole lot more footage out there that's going to explain that. For example, there's a few things we see in the trailer which are not really in the movie much. And I was at the theater with some people who bought early tickets, and then when one was getting out, they went over to the next one, because of the way the theater was staggering the film times. They got to see everything and learn it line by line by spending the whole day at the theater rewatching the film, which is kind of like what we did in the 70s with the first Star Wars. When I was a little kid, you'd buy a ticket in the morning and be there all afternoon. So you would learn every line in the movie. But what you catch in this is there's a lot of stuff that you didn't miss. It actually wasn't there. It kind of leads into something. We're looking for details. And probably the cantina scene, or the equivalent to the cantina scene, is the microcosm of the whole movie. You're being rushed around a party with some old friends, being introduced to new people who you barely get to learn their name, shake hands, and say hi, and we're going to the next one. And then the place gets blown up. So that's a lot of what's going on. You're kind of getting rushed around. When I'm watching this thing, I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting rushed around, and we're going to have to catch all the details later. Everybody's in a hurry. The one guy's trying to escape from the Empire. He's like a stormtrooper defector, and then there's Rey, who is supposed to be a parallel to the books and comic books, which was supposedly Han and Leia had two kids, and one was the boy, one was the girl. The boy turns bad, becomes a Sith. The girl becomes a new Jedi Master. No, so perhaps that's a reveal for the next one. And the big thing about the film, it's like the quest to find Luke Skywalker. Of course, he's found at the end. There's a major character loss in this, which makes sense from a Disney corporate point of view, because it's one of the older actors who's not replaceable in this. And so when one of the older actors in this who's not replaceable is, they figured they gotta make his exit, because when you're probably talking about a few years in between films, he may not be there by the end of the trilogy. So, and we see that in the introduction of the new characters. Obviously, a lot of new stuff is going to revolve around them, and you could probably come up with another person to play Chewbacca. I mean, that's probably, it makes sense. There's another Yoda-like character in this, but you get the impression she probably doesn't survive the film anyway. We're probably going to see a lot more of Mark Hamill in future films. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot more of him in the director's cut either. And there's a whole lot of people who are going to say, okay, well, what happened in the last 30 years? Because the way the Star Wars universe would work is all these characters still aged after The Empire Strikes Back. It was at 1986 or so. Here we are, 2015. And so, yeah, it was close to 30 years. These people have all aged. And so what else happened to them? And what was going on? So, and the other thing is, I'm not seeing a lot of continuity between this and the new Disney series, the Star Wars Rebels, except there's a Sith Inquisitor in Star Wars Rebels who closely resembles Snoke. And I got a feeling that's what it is. I got a feeling we're going to see the introduction of Snoke somewhere in the Disney Star Wars Rebels is where we're going to see the introduction of Snoke. The other thing is that J.J. Abrams has been accused of being the Kabbalah Illuminati guy for the Hollywood nowadays. If Star Wars is an example, the new Star Wars movie is an example of the extent of the Illuminati knowledge, Kabbalah of Hollywood right now, they're in a pretty dismal state. They don't know shit. It's not necessarily a kids' film, but for the older, more developed fans, you're going to watch this and almost like, okay, they don't know this. And that's something I'm catching kind of strongly in this. They're not, you know, if you're looking for clues to some kind of a thing, some kind of secret, they're really not there, because I don't think these guys really know it. I think they're putting a lot into visual effects. They're doing a lot of formula story stuff. J.J. Abrams comes out and it says, well, they had a couple of Death Stars, now we're going to have the Planet Destroyer. This one's even bigger and badder, so we're going to imagine it bigger and badder. Thanks, pal. Okay. So we get to see something that's kind of a run-through of the first 3 Star Wars movies, where they have an ice planet battle, and then they have a jungle planet battle, and they have a little of this and a little of that. And it's like, okay, let's roll up the first 3 Star Wars movies and destroy the Death Star at the end, and except now it's a real big Death Star, and okay, yeah, all right, I get it. All right, you want to say hi to everybody and then rush out of the room. That's kind of what I'm kind of thinking was going on with this. So the director's cut might be an hour longer. It's going to have a lot more going on, and we get to see more. The other thing is, I think the audience now, with everything Star Wars or everything fantasy world related, we get used to these epic 10 and 12 hour video game things where we get to go and explore all the corners. We get to go look at all the other parts of these things and corners of these things and interact a lot more with stuff. And we don't get that in the film. And so that's where a lot of the Star Wars experience, for example, if there was a Star Wars Battlefront, or is there going to be a first-person story that would go along with any of this stuff? And that's the questions that a lot of people might want to look into. Is, what kind of games is this going to spawn? Is this going to spawn any first-person stuff that has a storyline to it? And I think that's where it's going to go. I think that's where Disney probably wants to take it, is take it into those directions. So we're not going to see a lot of secrets of the universe hidden or concealed, or well, where's this little stuff, or where's that? It's still a little bit of formula storytelling, and that's something that J.J. Abrams may not have been fully aware of or in control over. George Lucas may not. I think his story was told. I think his story was done, and he's passed it on to somebody because the audience wants to keep hearing the story. They want to hear what happened to these people. Where does it go from here? And George Lucas is done telling a story, and he's done teaching the lessons in the first films. So, is there going to be a new, big, powerful story? I don't see it yet. Okay, I don't see the mind of a modern J.R.R. Tolkien writing into Star Wars. I don't see this. And I think maybe it's because Hollywood right now may not be up to it. Okay. But it's worth seeing. If you're a Star Wars fan, you got to find out what happens. What's the canon story of this? Because the comic books kind of go in one direction, the novels go in another, the videos kind of go in another game, and there's been a lot of speculation over the storyline because of the way the trailer was put together. there were parts of the trailer that are deliberately deceptive for a reason. Go see the movie. When you do go see the movie, whether you go IMAX or 3D, I'm going to recommend going 3D. And then when you get it at home, obviously it's going to come out in 4K. You know, if you got a good big screen 4K TV or something like that, go see it on 4K. But if you're going to go to the theater and you got a choice between IMAX or 3D, I would go 3D on this one. And it's worth seeing it. There's a few scenes that are pretty impressive in 3D. There's a lot of digital artwork in this, not a lot of stunt work. There's the lightsaber fights are kind of, you know, these people are stumbling over each other in the lightsaber fights. But see, the characters are supposed to be stumbling over each other too. And this is where we see that the Force Awakening, these people picked up a lightsaber for the first time, so of course they're going to stumble through the fight. These are not the highly skilled Jedis of the Old Republic or the Dark Jedi that followed the Sith ways, that were all masters and experts at what they do. So there's a fighting style that would go with that. There was a fighting style that would go with Qui-Gon Jinn and the other Jedi's, Obi-Wan Kenobi versus, let's say, Darth Maul. Darth Maul was played by a real martial artist. In this stuff, you see this Adam Driver guy. He's not I mean, he's not going to do kung fu movies anytime soon. Okay, and John Boyega, he's not going to do kung fu movies anytime soon either. And so, if you're looking for highly skilled Jedi lightsaber battles, you almost got to go to the prequel series to see the best of that. But that's supposed to be characteristic of a high point in the Republic and the high point of the Jedi Order. So in this, we're seeing, well, these are people stumbling over each other because they've just picked up a lightsaber for the first time, just practiced Force powers for the first time. And so it's a rush-through introduction, and we'll look forward to seeing the rest of the films.